classic TV and movie fans, Rick 90 here. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about The Last Man on Earth. This is the last video of my second annual Halloween special focusing on monsters and aliens. So if you haven't seen my previous videos on Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, go ahead and check those out. People love those videos. They did so well in this special. This is the last one, The Last Man on Earth. I think it is appropriately named. I really feel like I couldn't have done a special like this without looking at this film, The Last Man on Earth. I mean, it starred Vincent Price as Dr. Robert Morgan. If you've seen I Am Legend with Will Smith, it is based off of this movie, and this movie is based off of a book and so forth. We won't go into all the history. We're just going to look at some pretty cool facts about this. It's a 1964 release. It's about an hour and 26 minutes long. If you want to know the premise of the movie, I won't really spoil it. I just want to look at a couple things that are very interesting about the film. Now, the synopsis of the movie is that a disease turns all of humanity into the living dead. Now, the last man on Earth, again, Dr. Robert Morgan, played by Vincent Price, he becomes a vampire hunter. I think it's pretty awesome. I really love the mood that this movie gives. And there's a realness to the movie, if you can even imagine that, just in the acting of Vincent Price and his struggle. Reminds me a lot of the Twilight Zone episode, Time Enough at Last, where the man breaks his glasses and all he wanted to do at the end of the world with no one around is to read some books, and he couldn't get it done. So let's look at a few of these really awesome pieces of information about this film. Now, for anyone who is a fan of automobiles, cars, the station wagon that is used by Robert Morgan, Vincent Price, I'll just name him Morgan or Price, either or interchangeably. It's a black station wagon that he uses and he drives in the movie. It's a 1956 Chevy 210. Now, going to some people who were critical about this film, the one and only Charlton Heston. Now, in 1971, they remade The Last Man on Earth into a movie called Omega Man, which Heston was in. Now, what was interesting is that when he saw this movie, again, before the Omega Man was made, he described it as incredibly botched, totally unfrightening, ill-acted, sloppily written, and photographed. And I'm surprised, maybe it's not an Academy Award-winning film, but it's definitely a cult classic, and it's very enjoyable to watch. I mean, this was before any of the zombie flicks came out. In fact, George Romero said that this movie was an inspiration for Night of the Living Dead. So, I mean, it's very iconic. Now, if you're a fan of The Twilight Zone, I know that you know Rod Serling. You also probably know Richard Matheson, who wrote a lot of great episodes from The Twilight Zone, some of them including Third from the Sun, Little Girl Lost, Death Ship, Night Call, Nick of Time, with, of course, William Shatner, The Invaders, which is a great one, as well as Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, also with Bill Shatner. Now, he co-wrote this movie, and Richard Matheson felt that Vincent Price was miscast in the character of Robert Morgan. I would humbly say that he is absolutely wrong. I think that Vincent Price was perfect for this. Just the fact that he was a scientist in the beginning of the movie and then he becomes like a hero, I think it's great because it's not in his character, but he has to do his best to kind of fill in that role. I think that if they would have picked like a really muscly, like Arnold Schwarzenegger type character, it would have been too obvious. It would have been too easy for him. And the fact that it was Vincent Price made it more believable that he was struggling during this time. Now, there are a few differences between this version of the movie and the novel. For example, in this movie, the vampires are slow-moving and not really coordinated, but in the novel, the vampires were fast and agile. I mean, you can imagine that that has to do with the fact that this was a movie, and to capture just all the cinematic stuff, to not make it that difficult on Vincent Price. In fact, there is a little bit of creepiness with them being slower moving than fast. There were newer movies with fast zombies or fast vampires, which is terrifying in its own self. But the fact that they're slow and they'll eventually get to you is kind of terrifying. It's like a slow building of tension. Now, Vincent Price himself later admitted to having a great fondness for this film. He rated it himself superior to the 1971 remake, The Omega Man. Now, Vincent Price was a man who liked to become really specialized in his craft. He was a stickler for detail, and he wanted to show the accuracy of his character and the accuracy of his struggle for what he had to do. So to do this, he wanted to make the character appear more grueling and hardworking and show that he's really struggling to survive. So to add to that authenticity, Vincent Price insisted on lifting real people, that is not dummies, when he was moving these dead vampires. Those are real actors that he's moving around, and you can notice this. He puts them into the back of his car. They are moving like real people. They're not this slumpy dead movement of a dummy. And now that's why he takes extra care when he's moving these bodies or these live actors that are pretending that they're dead, because he doesn't want to hurt them. But for the scene of the pit that he uses in different parts of the movie, where he's throwing the vampires over into the pit, of course they're using dummies there for obvious reasons. They don't want to hurt anyone. But I find that really interesting that he wanted to feel the weight of these actors and make it a little hard for himself, and that would translate on film. That is what he insisted on doing. He refused to use dummies except for that pit scene, which I think is super genius. So go ahead and watch the movie. I think you will absolutely love it. Again, it's a cult classic. Vincent Price is in it, and he really dedicated a lot to his craft. Let me know what you think about this film. Does it creep you out? It really creeps me out. The fact that there's no one out there but him. And just the ending and the whole vibe of the film, the black and white. There is a color version of it. You can watch it online. Just Google it. It's very easy to find. It's absolutely free. So go ahead and check it out. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. We'll see you all next time. And don't forget, everyone, be hopeful. Thank you so much to everyone who supports my work on Patreon. David D, Sally N, Gerard D, Greg S, Ricky, Citizen Kane 359, Kevin K, and Vito L. If you want to appear on this list, don't forget to look at the Patreon description in the link below. Thank you.